I love decorative garden balls. Gosh, they're so beautiful. But to buy them in the store, they're awfully expensive. They're usually made out of blown glass, and I've seen them priced anywhere between $50 and $100, and sometimes more. I'm also a little nervous about having glass items in my garden because I get birds, squirrels, raccoons, skunks, all kinds of visitors, and if they accidentally knock it over and the ball breaks, well, I'm not going to be too happy to be out, $50, $60, $70. So I decided to make my own out of some materials that I had around the house, and you probably do too. If not, it might cost you $10 or less for the materials that you actually do have to buy. And the whole job from start to finish takes about 1 day. Hi there! Today I'm going to show you how to make your very own decorative mirrored ball, the kind of thing you can put in your garden. You start with an old basketball. This basketball is used. You can see that it's pretty worn, a little scuffed up. Can you see that too? Yes. As long as it still holds air, as this one does, then it's good to go. Over the past 30 years, there's been millions and millions of DVDs, CDs, and rewritable media that's been used, and now, I hate to say it, but it's garbage. These things get scratched, they get broken, and sometimes if they're rewritable media, stuff that you can usually tell because it's got a bit of a purple sheen to it, sometimes they just don't work anymore after a while. You burnt them, you put the information, songs, movies, whatever on them, but they just don't play anymore. What do you do with them? Do you just throw them in the garbage? I say that there's a better way. We can upcycle them with this project. When you begin, you want to find an area to work. It could be something like this, a piece of gravel driveway that you don't really care if you get spray paint on, or it might be some scrubby grass that you're not too fond of, or you can always just protect the area you're working on with some newspaper or craft paper. Now, it's absolutely not necessary, but I like to start with painter's pyramids. Those hold your project off the ground a little bit so you don't get the paint dripping and sticking to the bottom of your project. And again, it's not necessary, but you can start with primer. You can begin your project anywhere you like, not too close, not too far, and just nice, even strokes. You don't want to sit there and push and push and push and get a whole lot of paint on all at once, because then it will drip. When working with spray paint, of course, it's always best to do this outside or in a very well ventilated area. And you want to wait until your first coat is completely dry to the touch before applying anything else. You might want to go with 2 nice, even coats. You can skip the stage of using primer if you don't have any or if you don't wish to use it, but you will end up using more of your colored spray paint. While the ball is drying, you can work on the next step, which is making the little mirrored bits. For cutting the CDs, I find that a nice heavy tool, like this one, works really, really well. You can also use scissors, but I found that they don't work as well. These things are actually quite hard to cut sometimes. So you can use professionally burnt CDs and DVDs, which often come with one side being colored, showing the label, and the other side being plain silver, like reflective, like a mirror. You can also use the rewritable media, which was usually white on one side that people can write on, and sort of a purpley blue color on the other side. I usually like to start just like cutting it to the middle, just like this, and then making these triangular shaped pieces, which can then be cut into smaller, irregular sized pieces. Oops. Sometimes they fly away, so you might want to do this somewhere where when they do fly all over the place, it's not going to make a giant mess. As you're cutting your pieces, you want to keep them small. Now this piece here is actually a little bit too big, and I'll tell you why. When you're attaching these pieces to the basketball, you have to fit them around the roundness, and if they're too big, they're going to stick out. So what you actually want is something a little bit more like this size, about the size of perhaps your fingernail. Now this is kind of interesting. When you're cutting the CDs or DVDs, they'll break in one of two ways. They'll either cut nice, straight lines like this one. Every time that you cut it, it cuts a nice straight line. Or they'll do this really interesting random shattering like this. You can hear the crackling noise. And you end up with these asymmetrical shapes like this or these. And that's kind of neat because then you can have some small pieces that fill the right little gaps. They're not nice clean cuts. They have more interesting shapes. All in all, you'll need about 10 CDs or DVDs. You might need a little more or a little less depending on the size of the ball that you're using. If you find that the process of cutting all of these CDs is difficult, either with the tool that you're using or just hard on your hands, there is an alternative. You can always find something like rhinestones, little gemstones that are flat on the back and shiny. But I like the idea of using the CDs and DVDs because if they were just going to be destined for the garbage anyway, this is a better use for them. When you've got the ball finished in the color that you're happy with at least 2 coats to give it a nice rich color, and it's all dry, and you've got your big pile of cut up mirrored tile pieces, then you're ready to stick them together. I like to use an adhesive like this. This is an acrylic latex caulk with silicone. It's clear, which is important. Although when you put it on, it does go on white, but that's okay because it does dry clear. When you're using a product like this, you also need to have a caulking gun. And even though it's not completely necessary, I think it's a very good idea to also have some gloves to protect your hands, because otherwise you're going to be getting this stuff all over your hands. Because the ball I'm working on today is blue, I decided to use blue tinted CDs. So I separated the bits into mostly clear, or you could say silver, the blue and purple tinge of the rewritable media, and CDs and DVDs that had blue on their labels, just in case you've never used a caulking gun before. So it's got a pull trigger, and when you pull on the trigger, it comes out the end of the tube. But what you have to remember is when you're done, don't just leave it sitting there, because the pressure will continue pushing out the tube and you'll have a big mess. So what you want to do instead is make sure that you release the pressure by pushing on that little thing on the back. And then it'll stop coming out the end. This is also why it's a nice idea to do this outside or some other work area that you don't mind getting a little bit messy. It's a little bit like just putting a puzzle together, except that there's no right way and there's no wrong way to do it. It's wherever you like the pieces to go. The nice thing is also, if something's in the wrong spot, you can always move it around. As long as it's still wet and it hasn't set yet, you can always move pieces around a little bit. Just remember, there's no right way and no wrong way to do this, really. I mean, don't work on too large of an area at one time with your caulking because it will dry out. Just do an area about this big, and you don't have to worry about where to put the next piece. As long as it fits, then it's the right place. This is supposed to be fun. In the end, you'll end up something very unique. Let's continue. You can even make a stand for your ball if you'd like. In this case, I made it out of a couple of water jugs. I'll show you. This pedestal is made out of 2 large plastic water jugs. The necks of them fit into each other. One is being used as the base and one of them is holding the ball. A water bottle, just like this one,